The Lakers are expected to get Rui Hachimura back in the lineup on Monday, but he will not be starting. Is that a permanent trend? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, even on holidays, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple, whether you're one of the 37,000 plus subscribers. Subscribing to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel, you are part of making the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one podcast network in this or any other known universe. I'm Brian Kamenetsky with Andy Kamenetsky. We've spent, a good portion of the last 20 years covering the Lakers for ESPN, for The Athletic, and more. And Andy, the Lakers are playing the down-and-out Sacramento Kings.
Excuse me, the just beat the Houston Rockets.
That's
Sacramento
true.
Kings.
Find a team that's been hotter than Sacramento since Sunday.
I'm just saying, they just beat the Houston Rockets. I believe they've beaten them twice this season, maybe even thrice, for whatever reason. They are the Houston Rockets kryptonite.
It's funny you mentioned that because I think this is true. It is hard to beat a team three times, certainly in a relatively short span. Lakers, this will be the third time the Lakers have played Sacramento in a very still, reasonably young season. We're not, even at the All-Star break yet. And I think this might be the exception to that. It can be hard to beat the same team three times in a row, even a bad team. But even if it is, Andy, the Lakers absolutely, positively need to make sure that they beat the Sacramento Kings on Monday night because they just can't afford to give away games against the worst teams in the NBA. And red hot as they may be, the Sacramento Kings are one of the worst teams in the NBA.
Yeah, especially, too, they cannot afford to do this on the heels of a loss to the Bucks that was very disappointing on a bunch of different levels in terms of a lot of the overall execution. Certainly, Luka Doncic's performance, I think his worst as a Laker, and it's probably, if you go back over the course of his career, top 5 worst performances he's had. Also, the Lakers have actually only played the Kings once in the last month and a half.
Oh, I'm sorry. I may have misread that then. I thought this was their third meeting against them.
No, they played them the third game of the season.
Okay, right. So they have played 3 times this season. Okay.
This will be the third. This will be the third time.
This will be the third time this season.
But it is. But they have not beaten them 3 times in a row. Is doing a lot of work considering how much time has passed since.
Fair enough, but I'm just saying beating any team 3 or 4 times, is just, it can be a challenge in any sport across anything. But the Lakers, they just don't have the flexibility to get away with that kind of thing. You mentioned the Milwaukee game. That was a disappointing loss. And the Lakers have typically bounced back strong from games like that over the course of the year. They got the full weekend to practice and, Andy, to get Rui Hachimura presumably back into the lineup. He is expected to play on Monday night, and he will be a welcome addition to the lineup, and he will also be coming off the bench, which is not terribly surprising given the amount of time he's been out, but it raises all kinds of questions. Let's start first with just the basics. They get Rui back, and this is a big deal for an offense that needs spacing, it needs punch, it needs a lot of things that Rui provides.
Yeah, and he's off the injury report altogether. The only guys on it are Austin Reaves and Adu Thero that we both know are going to be out or that we all know is going to be out for a while. So short of a very unexpected setback for Rui on Monday, he should be in the lineup. He said during Sunday's practice, quote, talking about the calf, "I'm fine. It's been 2 weeks almost, so my calf is healed. We've been practicing. They were gone for a little bit, so I was practicing with the G League, trying to get healthy and get better, and I feel good about it tomorrow being Monday." He also said that this calf issue, it's been recurrent. And remember, he had missed a couple games or whatever for the calf earlier in the season. He said, quote, "I've had it for 2 years. now. It's a different side, but the calf is really important. I was always working on it, but just the fatigue and all kinds of recovery stuff, you have to be really on it. But it happens, and I think with this, you have to be really careful with the workouts, rehab, and everything. So I got to take it the most serious, and then mention, obviously depends on what the training staff says, doctors and all that on Monday, but he is expecting to play, and he was very optimistic in the way he was presenting this.
And, it's just, the Lakers have, it's interesting. Like the offense has been a struggle. It seems like it sort of fits and starts all season long, yet they're actually one of the best teams in the NBA in terms of half court offensive efficiency. So like there's all kinds of contradictions with the Lakers offense. But one thing that is really, and it's not just the ability to make 3-pointers, although the Lakers, kind of lack for that on a lot of nights. What you really see when Rui isn't there is just teams completely collapsing off of the 3-point line. And so some nights, Milwaukee, the Lakers actually shot the ball pretty well. It was 2-point range where they were, god awful, and particularly from Luka. But not forcing teams to defend all the way to the perimeter makes a huge difference in what you can do and how easy it is to do it. And one guy doesn't change that necessarily, especially when Rui just hasn't had the volume from 3-point range that I think a lot of people would like him to have. But at the very least, whereas teams will ignore Jared Vanderbilt at the 3-point line, they will, generally speaking, allow Marcus Smart to take as many 3-pointers as he would like. Jake LaRavia gets some attention, but you'll let Rui Hachimura at this point draws attention. You have to guard him at the 3-point line. And that just little bits of spacing make a difference.
Yeah, the little bits of spacing do make a difference. I think it depends a lot on who's on the floor with him. I think when he was starting with what seemed like JJ's preferred lineup, LeBron, Luka, Austin, Ayton, Rui, I don't know how much his gravity necessarily mattered, just because when the other 4 guys are getting so much attention, a couple of them are even going to get doubled a lot, particularly Luka, but sometimes LeBron, sometimes Austin. There's only so many defenders to go around, and Rui would be, I think, left open just by process of elimination. Problem is he just wasn't getting the ball enough.
Well, he's left. Sometimes you will be left open on, which is, by the way, good, because you want him to be the end result of the payment. But whoever is guarding Rui, whoever is like, it's a step. It's one step further out to the 3-point line that you don't, because you need to be able to recover. Whereas if it's in your game plan to, please, for the love of God, let that guy shoot, you can collapse as much as you want.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying that defenses collapse off Rui. That's not accurate. He's known too much as a shooter and a scorer to ignore. Like, it doesn't make sense to ignore Rui. My point was more that between the usage of LeBron, Luka, and Austin, and the volume that they've at least at times tried to find for DeAndre Ayton, and certainly the volume of all those 3 guys, Rui was getting ignored to the point where I feel like if teams are paying attention, the gravity only goes so far, which is why, and I know we're going to talk about this, both of us have been saying for this entire season, before the season began, it makes much more sense to play Rui off the bench. I think his volume would just go up and his opportunities would go up, but also, especially with, LaRavia now in the starting lineup, Marcus Smart in the starting lineup, there is no scoring off the bench at all, unless we're talking about one of the 5 to 6 games per season that Nick Smith gets hot. If it's not Nick Smith, or they're really running good pick and roll lobs for Hayes, or Hayes is getting putbacks or whatever, there's no scoring to speak of, and there's definitely, unless it's Nick Smith getting hot, no designated scorer at all off the bench. They need the ability to spread that around 48 minutes, Rui's presence there, I think, can change things a lot just because he is a scorer. That is what he does in this league.
No question. And so, look, we'll get into this because JJ again said that Rui will be coming off the bench. Minutes restrictions and stuff early. Very common the way that coaches are handling this now. Victor Wembanyama has come off the bench, coming back from injury. Aaron Gordon finally got back into the starting lineup after 3 or 4 games coming off the bench. A rock solid starter in Denver. And Wemby is Wemby, and he still is coming off.
Yeah, Austin Reaves came off the bench for 1 game after the first time he came back from the calf injury before re-injuring it. Now he's out for a while.
Right, and probably will come off the bench when he eventually comes back for at least a couple games, just because these minutes restrictions are difficult to, kind of manage where you want guys to be on and off the floor. But the bigger question is not just it's both what it means for the Lakers to have somebody on their bench, at least for a game, but also whether or not this sticks, and what it might mean for the Lakers and the rest of the rotation. And that is what we'll talk about next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season. FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, whether you're talking about boosts, bonuses, surprises. It is easy to check the weekly special for tip-off, make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday night from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Do want to remind people quickly of the Everydayer Club, Locked on Lakers. If you want to get the experience the program without commercial interruption, you can do that by joining the Everydayer Club. You can check it out in the show notes if you want, the easiest way to get there, or you can go directly to the page, lockedonlakers.supercast.com. You can get the show, Spotify, Apple, however you get it, feed directly to you with no commercial interruption. You also get an invitation to a Locked on Lakers Discord chat that everybody can, all the other subscribers are in. Andy and I will be in. A great way to continue that conversation that, for example, happens on YouTube. For example, take it a little stronger, a little more back and forth with people. So again, Everydayer Club, if you're interested. If you're not interested, do nothing. Everything stays exactly the same. Again, check out the show notes for more details. So I am excited for Rui to come back, not just because the Lakers need what he provides. I'm excited for Austin to come back because, there's a lot in this team where you can start slotting guys to the most ideal minutes and the most ideal floor pairings when you get everybody back. And, I think this question of starting versus coming off the bench for somebody like Rui, this applies to him. When you want to maximize a player, it makes sense to put him in a position where he can do all the stuff that you want him to do, particularly now when you have only 2 of the 3 with LeBron and Luka available to you. You really want Rui coming off the bench to be able to support most likely LeBron in a lot of those situations as another offensive outlet. And to put him on the floor a lot while both of your stars are available seems awful. It just seems like a total misallocation of a very limited resource.
Well, I imagine because LeBron is typically the first guy that subs out, Rui will be the first sub in, taking over that exact same spot in the lineup as LeBron did before. I would think, and JJ said that he has not made up his mind whether or not this is going to be a permanent thing. I would like to think that he is using this as the organic entryway to start playing Rui off the bench. We all get used to it, and then it just no longer is a thing that gets asked about, hopefully because the Lakers are winning. Because the reality is, this is a move that has been screaming to take place, whether you are talking about the eye test, whether you are talking about the data, whether you are talking about things that would happen because of common sense. Mm-hmm. If you just take a look at some of the numbers, 5 games of Luka, LeBron, Smart, Ayton, Jake LaRavia as a starting 5, 77 minutes, like every look with this team. Not a big sample size, right. But I mean, they are for the most part all fairly limited because the Lakers have had, I believe, 19 starting lineups this season. But in those 77 minutes, not a big sample size, they are plus 20 for the total minutes with a net rating of 10, a positive 10, 114.8 offensive rating, 104.8 defensive. Contrast that with Luka, LeBron, Smart, Ayton, and Rui. So Rui and Jake out. 36 minutes, but it's 97.3 offensive rating, 125 defensive rating, net minus 28. Or just the 3-man lineup in general of Luka, LeBron, and Rui. 196 minutes, much bigger sample size. 111.4 offensive rating, 121.7 defensive rating, minus 10.2 net. Luka and Rui together have a positive net rating. Luka and LeBron for the season together, it's net negative, but in the last 6 games without Rui, plus 4.6. LeBron and Rui, net rating for the season, minus 8.4. Are you noticing a pattern that's forming here? The 3 of them together, Luka, LeBron, and Rui, don't work in basically any combination. LeBron and Rui together really don't work. And the reasons are fairly obvious. And they're the reasons that we said heading into this season, it won't work. When you put Luka, LeBron, and Rui on the floor together for extended time, you have 3 guys who ideally would be guarding 4s or maybe small 5s, or maybe the 3 that you don't care about, maybe. But you've got 3 guys that basically need to guard the same type of player, which means somebody, if you only have 1 guard out there, Austin, or I guess Marcus Smart right now, that means somebody's going to have to guard out of position, and it is always Rui. So you are taking somewhere between net neutral to minus defender.
Not a good defender. Yeah. You're taking a weak defender. Just
right. You're taking
a couch it.
Oh, I just meant there. He occasionally is all right in certain ones, but he is overall a minus defender.
Even average defenders are occasionally good. Yeah, sure. He's average.
He's overall a minus defender, and you're asking him to guard out of position as a minus defender, out of necessity. It won't work for reasons that are obvious. Is Jake LaRavia a perfect guy to put on either smaller wings or guards? The one that Marcus Smart is not guarding, or right now, he's not perfect. He can sometimes be too slow, but he's clearly much better for the role than Rui. So the reasons that those combinations with Luka, Rui, and LeBron don't work are glaringly obvious, glaringly predictable. It's not about Rui doing anything wrong. It's about floor combination.
About Rui. I mean, it's not Rui doing anything wrong in the sense that it's Rui.
He's not playing badly, is my point.
He's trying to do what he's supposed to do. He's not good at the things you're asking him to do. And so it gets to the point I was making before. Are you using all of your pieces in the ways that make the most sense? And, LaRavia, particularly if LaRavia is hitting shots, the reason Gabe Vincent, for example, started at the beginning of the season is you're trying to find that little bit of extra defense with a little bit of floor spacing and a little bit of what is the best happy medium that I can find? LaRavia kind of serves in that way. He is, provided a lot of defensive energy. He, is a little better. Some ways not great, but a little better, than the package might indicate, and all of that, and still provides you with a little bit of that floor spacing if he's shooting as he has been over the last week and a half or something like that. When he was shooting 28% or 22%, 25, then he wasn't, and it was problematic. With the Lakers with Rui, whether he's helping provide, bench scoring for LeBron, wouldn't surprise me based on some of what you're talking about too. Do you go a little small? Let LeBron, depending on the combinations and the matchups, can you let LeBron play a little bit of small ball 5? They've had success with that kind of lineup in short spurts against the right lineups and things like that. I want to talk though too, and we can start it, kind of start it off here and go into the next segment. The other thing that this does that I think is really important is it allows you to take 25 minutes of Rui when he comes back is going to cut into Jared Vanderbilt's playing time, for example. It's going to cut into a few other people. And I see this as a positive because, I was looking through some of the stuff that our friend of the show and great coverer of Luka and the Lakers, Itzhak Franco, was writing, kind of going through some of the Vando stuff. The Lakers suffer from having to kind of play 4-on-5 when Vando's out there. Is it a problem at 15 to 20 minutes a game? Not necessarily. It gets to be a larger problem when you're playing 25, closer to 30. If you can balance that stuff back out, again, now you're starting to maximize what everybody can do in the most successful ways, and the Lakers can squeeze the most out of this rotation. And I just think that is really critical because they're extremely top heavy. So you got to figure out a way to get more out of who else is there. We'll get to that stuff next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there is nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, but not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what the tickets are actually going to cost, not what they're putting up front in the big print and hoping you don't read past that. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it easy, incredibly easy, to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without any guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets, it just takes a few taps. And the prices, this is awesome. They include the fees up front. So that total is crystal clear from the start. So whether it's an NBA game, another live event, everything is right there. All the info you need, including price, one place. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, get in on the action.
So like, to the point, like Lakers 0820, that makes sense. 0824, 0824, noted that, Vandalorian's effort is unmatched, responding to what I was saying at the end of the last segment. And that is true. Like, the Lakers need what Vanderbilt is providing them, but especially when you get a lot of lineups with Vando and Marcus Smart on the floor at the same time, you're cranking up the defense for sure. And that's great. But if you have him out there with any of the Lakers centers, this floor spacing that you have at that point is catastrophically bad by NBA standards. And so what you need is just a little more balance. And the Lakers need to be able to distribute that, go to that Vando Smart combo when you really need to, but it's not something you necessarily want to run, I don't think, big minutes to, or have to run big minutes to, because those are the only players that you have. And so I am looking forward to seeing what the return of Rui does just to the rotation in terms of providing spacing throughout 48 minutes and giving that half-court offense a little more room to operate, making it easier for Luka to operate, at some point that lack of space, I think, starts to impact his ability to be efficient and things. He had a bad game against Milwaukee. I'm not blaming that on anybody other than he had a bad game. But were this to continue over time, I think it could genuinely wear on him.
Look, their teams need their best players back. Rui is one of the 5 best players on this team, whether he starts or not. And him coming off the bench, as I've wanted to see happen since before the season even began, that is not indicative of Rui being 6th or lower in the pecking order. He's one of the 5 best players on this team. It's about floor combinations and matching skill sets on both sides of the ball. He's been missed. When he has gotten enough opportunity, his efficiency as a 3-level scorer, his ability to act as a finisher, like finishing plays for the Lakers, or just serving as a safety valve. We've seen, think about, particularly against the Bucks, how many of the possessions we saw where, particularly if it was just Luke on the floor or just LeBron on the floor because the other one was getting a rest, and there was no safety valve out there at all when things start gumming up, Rui can be hugely important. Like, him coming off the bench does not in any way detract or dilute, his importance on this team. It just better balances it. Frankly, I think he's going to get more opportunity to actually be the best version of himself.
You're less dependent on guys like Nick Smith, like, to provide you with offense in ways that you ought not to be dependent on somebody like Nick Smith. We didn't mention this earlier because, this Rui stuff is really important. And it hopefully is the beginning of a trend, Andy, that you and me and so many Laker fans have been pushing towards for a long time, as you noted. But we would be remiss if we didn't note that one of the strangest stories in the NBA this year will be playing out in the absence of Dennis Schroder, former Laker, who was suspended.
Former 3-time Laker, I believe. I got to look. I
thought it was twice.
Let me look it up. Oh, no, I may be mixing him up with Dwight Howard, who was a 3-time Laker.
Yes, I believe Dennis was just twice.
He may have just been twice. I will verify.
Although,
Dwight was definitely 3.
Yeah, what you were getting at is, I think, somewhat relevant to why Dennis Schroder won't be on the court for the Kings in this game. He was suspended for 3 games by the league for apparently trying to beat up Luka in the tunnel after the last time these two teams played. Luka was taunting Dennis. I believe it was over the contract that Dennis didn't sign.
No. There's no believe. It absolutely was.
I just haven't heard anybody say, like, that's what Dennis, like, Dennis
has been reporting.
That's why I went to beat him up.
There's been reporting that was part of it. He also said that reportedly you can't refer to me as a bleep on the court and have everything be cool off the court. I don't know the exact vocabulary in terms of referring to Dennis Schroder as a bleep on the court, but I would imagine also bringing up that he fumbled the $80-ish million bag felt, if nothing else, like calling him that word I can't repeat. Even if he didn't call him that word I can't repeat, it felt like referring to him that way.
Dennis Schroder not taking, what was it? It was like 80 million,
I believe.
Yeah, from the Lakers, remains one of, if not the single worst financial choice that any NBA player has made in certainly my lifetime.
Well, I mean, the Lakers were desperately trying to overpay Dennis Schroder, because I remember
they were trying so hard.
When we first got word that this was a possibility for Dennis, we were like, wait, 84 million American? Like, have you lost your effing mind, Rob Pelinka? Like, what? You're offering him 4 years, 84? Like, what? Like, it was arguably more insane that was actually the offer than that Dennis
I had a very similar reaction to that in the news that the Lakers were like desperately trying to give Klay Thompson like 60 million or 80 million. I was like, what? Oh my God. So
and they've got Euro basketball beef over the last few years as well.
There's stuff. There's stuff there. And but that is brutal on-court trash talk. Because this is not brand new. Like you're kind of dredging up some stuff that, like, you finally think that scab is healed over, and there's Luka just clawing at it. And it says two things about me. First of all, Dennis is a very fiercely competitive guy who can say whatever he wants. He's still really upset that he did not take that money.
I mean, at this point, he actually had a post making fun of himself on social media. Like,
sure, but we're not past it, is my point.
No, I wouldn't be.
Never. But the second part of this is like, it just gives you an idea of what Luka is on the floor. Like, he's soft-spoken off of it. He's very kind. He signs every autograph. I mean that literally. Like, he will stand outside hotels and sign, and every kid who's out there, everybody, like, he signs everything. He's a phenomenal sort of ambassador for the game. You put him on the floor and he is savage. Like, he is just brutal with the trash talk and with the commentary and with all of that stuff.
And Dennis is a huge irritant himself.
Yes,
like he's hardly an innocent bystander.
No, he's not.
He is an innocent bystander who is poorer than he could have been, but he is not an innocent bystander by any stretch of the imagination. Dennis and Luka
knew what he was doing when he was, Luka knew what string he was tugging at with a guy like Schroder in particular, given all their other stuff. I just think like this sort of thing, I don't think it was more common like when we first started this or when we were kids or something like that. But like, you just don't hear many stories anymore about players going to try to beat up other players in the tunnel. And I want to thank Dennis Schroder for bringing that back.
Well, I mean, remember after the Spurs loss, Vando and Jeremy Sohan got into it a bit.
But that was on the floor.
Right. But I believe Sohan said something like, meet me after the game. And Vando was more than willing to meet him after the game. There was recently a few years ago, and I don't remember what it was. I'm trying to remember what happened. Like within the last couple of years, there was a tunnel altercation or like near the buses altercation. I can't remember who off the top of my head, but I know there's been one relatively recently. And Vando seems like somebody that would be willing to meet you after the game.
Oh yeah.
As for that matter, so does Sohan. But it is actually
Vando got up and poked him in the face.
Right. He did one of those, and we'll see what happens the next time the Lakers and Spurs play. But Dennis will be unavailable for this game against the Kings. I'm sure Russell Westbrook will find a way to bring some of the personal for him and Dennis, because both of them have different reasons that they could create to dislike the Lakers, dislike Luka, dislike, certainly it seems like Russ don't like LeBron. They can find ways to make this personal. I would like to think the Kings can't find ways to make this competitive.
Yeah,
that's what really matters.
Yes, and look, losing a player like Schroder hurts the Kings. They are, of course, the hottest team in the NBA since Sunday. So the Lakers. Look, you've said this before, and I think it's true. The Lakers aren't good enough to be cocky in any game. They are plenty good enough to win this game without Austin Reaves. They should win this game without Austin Reaves. And even, it's on the road. Well, when they go to Sacramento, Lakers fans flood that building. So it doesn't feel like a game in enemy territory. The beam should stay unlit Monday night, and it needs to in a big way.
I think they boxed up the beam and sold it. I don't even know if they've had a reason to keep that thing around in whatever the hell the building's Golden One or whatever it's called. I think that's what it's called. I have no idea. But last detail though from this Luka Dennis brouhaha, Ayton was apparently in the middle of this breaking them up, pulling Schroder away. We're not far removed from a recent situation where Jackson had Luka's back. Very much out in front of him, protecting Luka. Just goes to show both these guys, these centers, recognizing this is my meal ticket. You are not going to hurt this man. Dennis, we already know about the money you screwed up. I am not going to allow you to screw up my money.
Get your hand out of my wallet, man.
Exactly.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is breaking hangout with over 37,000 subscribers. Check out the Everydayer Club. See if it's for you. We'll see everyone after the game.